Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're taking on a deep dive into crypto and blockchain with, AI and U.S. policy thrown in for good measure. We're going to be looking at an episode of the Crypto and Coffee at 8 podcast from Slrigo, January 27th, 2025. It's hosted by George from Blockchain DXP. We talked about, the crypto market being kind of shaky, but the big news was, President Trump, he was just reelected. And he signed some executive orders about digital assets. It's a pretty interesting mix. So, right to it.
Yeah, what really struck me was the timing. George's podcast came out just as these executive orders were making a big splash. It really shows how politics and crypto are getting more and more connected.
Right. George started off talking about the crypto market itself. And like you said, it wasn't exactly a party. He mentioned the Federal Open Market Committee meeting, the FOMC, where they were going to talk about interest rates.
Yeah. And this is where the traditional financial world and the crypto world collide. All the uncertainty around potential changes to interest rates, it was really shaking things up in the crypto market. George even mentioned the volume of stablecoins, like it was some kind of warning sign. People seem to be selling their crypto and converting it to regular money, almost like they were getting ready for a storm.
So for our listeners, that means you need to pay attention to those bigger economic trends, interest rates. Even if they seem totally unrelated, they can impact your crypto investments. It's a reminder that crypto isn't off on its own. It's part of a much bigger financial system.
Exactly. Now, things got really interesting when George brought up President Trump's 2 executive orders. These orders are all about the U.S. becoming the leader in digital assets and blockchain tech. It's a pretty bold move. I mean, it's a huge shift from how the previous administration approached things.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The previous administration, with things like Operation Choke Point 2.0, they seemed, much more cautious, almost afraid of crypto. Some people even thought they were trying to slow down crypto innovation.
Right. But these executive orders from President Trump are sending a very different message. One of the most surprising things is that they clearly prohibit U.S. agencies from, issuing or even promoting central bank digital currencies. Or CBDCs.
I have to admit, that one surprised me too. It seems like it goes against what a lot of other countries are doing.
It does. Think about it. CBDCs are basically just digital versions of a country's regular currency, issued and controlled by the central bank. It's like a digital dollar or euro or yen. What's so interesting is that by stopping U.S. agencies from messing with CBDCs, President Trump is saying he prefers private, decentralized solutions. It's a stance that aligns with what a lot of people in the crypto community believe, and it could have a huge impact on the future of finance as a whole.
Okay, let's break down the key policy points in these executive orders. See what they could mean for people like you, our listeners, people who are interested in this space.
Okay, well, one of the most important points is the emphasis on open blockchain networks. These orders actually protect your rights and the rights of individuals and companies to use these networks for legitimate purposes. We're talking about developing software, mining, validating transactions, and even self-custody of digital assets. It's about making sure that everyone can participate in the blockchain ecosystem without the government getting in the way, as long as they're following the rules.
So it's like they're saying, hey, we trust you to be responsible in this new digital world. It seems like it could really boost innovation.
Exactly. And along those same lines, there's a strong push for regulatory clarity. The orders call for what they call technology-neutral regulations and transparent frameworks. The idea is to create an environment where, permissionless blockchains, cryptocurrencies, and all these new distributed ledger technologies can thrive. It's about letting this technology evolve naturally, rather than trying to force it into outdated regulatory boxes.
That makes sense. If the U.S. wants to stay competitive in this rapidly changing sector, attracting investment and fostering innovation is key.
Absolutely. And then there's the interesting part about stablecoins. These executive orders actually endorse dollar-backed stablecoins as a potential way to strengthen the U.S. dollar's global influence.
They aren't just tolerating this new thing. They're embracing it as a potential tool to, boost the U.S. dollar on the world stage.
It's a bold move, and it shows they're taking the potential of stablecoins seriously. Now, here's another thing. These executive orders set up a presidential working group on digital asset markets. This group is going to have a pretty big job. From figuring out a federal regulatory framework for digital assets, even exploring the idea of a national digital asset stockpile, which could be built up from, seized cryptocurrency.
You're saying there's a chance that the U.S. government might start holding reserves of Bitcoin?
Yeah.
or other cryptocurrencies, like they hold gold reserves. That's a pretty wild thought.
It is. And it shows how seriously they're taking this whole thing. And to top it all off, the executive orders are revoking old frameworks, including Executive Order 146.7 from 2022, to align digital asset policies with this new vision.
It's like they're clearing the way for a whole new era. Now, I'm sure you're all wondering what this means for you, especially if you're interested in getting involved in crypto. It's a complicated world, but it's definitely worth exploring. And that leads us to the next big topic, Bitcoin ETFs.
Yes. ETFs. George had some pretty strong opinions about those in his podcast.
Yeah.
He was pretty skeptical about ETFs. He argued that they go against the whole point of Bitcoin, which is decentralization.
That's a good point. Bitcoin was designed to cut out the middleman, to give people control over their own money.
Yeah.
But ETFs, by their very nature, involve a centralized entity managing those assets.
It's a valid concern, and it's something a lot of people in the crypto community worry about. But there's another side to this. ETFs could potentially bring, more mainstream adoption, more liquidity, and more regulatory clarity to the crypto market. Those are all things that could benefit everyone, even those who really value decentralization.
So it's a complicated trade-off. What do you think? Do crypto ETFs ultimately help or hurt decentralization? It's something to think about as you navigate this ever-changing world.
Yeah. There are a couple other things George mentioned that I think you'll find interesting.
Yeah. The one that really caught my eye was the whole John McAfee thing.
Yeah.
For those who haven't heard.
Yeah.
John McAfee, the antivirus software guy.
Yeah.
And big crypto advocate. He was found dead a few years ago.
Yeah.
Under some pretty mysterious circumstances.
Right. And now, all of a sudden, his Twitter account is active again, promoting an AI-driven token called CIA AIntivirus. It's like something straight out of a movie. Is he really back? Is it a hack? Or something else entirely? It's really weird.
It definitely shows you how crazy the crypto world can be. There are scams and misinformation everywhere. You really have to be careful and do your research before you jump into anything.
Absolutely. The other thing that caught my attention was Brazil's decision to suspend WorldCoin's data collection practices. WorldCoin, in case you don't know, is a project that uses iris scanning technology to verify people's identities and to distribute cryptocurrency.
Right. And Brazil is worried about the privacy implications, especially because biometric data is irreversible. It's a big deal because it raises some fundamental questions about the ethics of these ambitious crypto projects.
It really highlights the challenges governments are facing as they try to figure out how to regulate this technology while also protecting people's rights and privacy.
It's a tough balancing act, and one that we'll probably be seeing for years to come.
Yeah, and it's not just Brazil that's dealing with this. We're seeing these kinds of debates and regulations popping up all over the world. It's a sign that blockchain and AI aren't just some niche technologies anymore, tucked away in a Silicon Valley lab. They're breaking into the mainstream. And they're making us rethink our ideas about data privacy and identity.
It's a lot to process, that's for sure. Now, before we move on, George also talked about some pretty cool things happening overseas, specifically in Dubai and Saudi Arabia.
Oh, yeah. He mentioned the Ankit Gore Center of Excellence in Blockchain and AI Research at the BITS Pilani Dubai campus. It's a big project, trying to bridge the gap between academia and the real world to encourage innovation and entrepreneurship in these cutting-edge fields.
So it's not just about the tech itself. It's about building a whole ecosystem to help it grow and bring real-world applications to life.
Exactly. And then in Saudi Arabia, we see the Saudi Data and Artificial Intelligence Authority getting involved. They're giving out accreditation certificates to AI service providers. They want to make sure that AI products and services in the kingdom are high quality and reliable.
It's interesting to see how different countries are handling this new wave of technology. Some are taking a hands-off approach, letting the market lead the way, while others are being more proactive, trying to shape the industry and set some rules.
It's a dynamic landscape with a lot of different approaches happening at the same time. But for you, the takeaway is pretty clear. There's a huge surge of interest in blockchain and AI globally. It's not just a Silicon Valley thing anymore. It's a global wave of innovation.
It really makes you think about what the future holds. Speaking of the future, I think it's time we come back to President Trump's executive orders. They seem like they could be a real game changer, not just in the U.S., but for the whole crypto world.
Totally. Those orders, with their focus on open blockchain networks, regulatory clarity, and even their acceptance of stablecoins, they signal a big change in policy. It's a shift away from the cautious, almost hesitant approach of the previous administration and towards a stance that's more proactive and friendly towards innovation.
It makes you wonder how this will affect the global crypto landscape. Will other countries follow suit and do the same thing? Or will we see different approaches, with some countries embracing crypto and others staying more skeptical?
It's tough to say for sure, but one thing's for certain. This move by the U.S. is going to shake things up in the global financial system. It's going to force other countries to rethink their own strategies and figure out where they stand in this rapidly changing space.
It's almost like we're seeing a new kind of digital diplomacy.
Sure.
Countries competing for power, not just through traditional means,
Yep.
but through how they approach blockchain and digital assets.
It's definitely an interesting development, and I think it's going to have some pretty big consequences. And for you, as someone who's interested in blockchain, it's important to watch these geopolitical shifts. They could have a major impact on the whole crypto ecosystem.
Now, with all this talk about executive orders and global trends, I don't want us to forget about the people involved, the people in communities who are driving this innovation.
You're right. The human element is super important. It's easy to get lost in the technology and the money. But in the end, it's people who are building this future. It's the developers, the entrepreneurs, the artists, the activists. They're the ones pushing the boundaries and exploring how blockchain can change the world.
Let's not forget about the everyday users, the people who are choosing to use these new technologies in their lives. They're the ones who are ultimately shaping the demand and driving the adoption of blockchain and crypto.
Absolutely. It's a collaborative effort, a global movement of people, united by a shared belief in the power of this technology.
And that brings us back to George's podcast and the questions he asked his listeners. He asked them to think about Bitcoin ETFs. Do they help or hurt decentralization?
It's a question that gets to the core of the debate about the future of blockchain. On one hand, ETFs could help bring crypto to the mainstream and make the market more liquid, which could be good for everyone.
But on the other hand, they introduce a level of centralization that goes against the whole idea of self-sovereignty and control that's so important to a lot of crypto enthusiasts.
He said that classic line, "Not your keys, not your coins."
It's a good reminder that even as crypto becomes more mainstream, it's important to understand the basic principles behind it.
And to make informed choices about how you want to participate.
Yeah. As we wrap up this deep dive, I think the main takeaway is this. The world of crypto is constantly changing. It's a complex and dynamic space with a lot going on.
And there's no one right way to do things. What works for one person might not work for another.
The important thing is to stay curious, keep learning, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
And remember, the future of finance is being decided right now, and you have the chance to be a part of it.
So, until next time, happy diving.
And may your journey into the world of blockchain be full of exciting discoveries. It's a wild ride, for sure.
It is. Now, before we finish up, I want to go back to something George brought up in his Ask Me Anything segment. It was about those Bitcoin ETFs, yes, specifically, how they might impact the average person.
Yeah.
Someone who's just starting to learn about crypto.
Oh, yeah. He had a really interesting point. He said that for a lot of people, ETFs could be an easy and relatively safe way to get into crypto, especially for those who might be intimidated by, like setting up a crypto wallet.
Yeah.
Or managing their own private keys.
DTS could be like a bridge, bringing more people into the crypto world.
Exactly. And all those new users and all that new money, it could really boost innovation and adoption.
Right.
But George also said people shouldn't rely too much on ETFs. He reminded everyone that with ETFs, you're basically giving control of your assets to someone else.
And that goes against the whole idea of self-sovereignty, which is a core principle for a lot of crypto people.
Yeah. He said that classic line, "Not your keys, not your coins."
It's a good reminder that even as crypto becomes more mainstream, it's important to understand the basics.
And to make smart choices about how you want to be involved.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the main takeaway is this. The world of crypto is always changing.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on.
Definitely. And there's no one right way to approach it. What works for one person might not work for someone else.
Right. The important thing is to stay curious, keep learning, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
And remember, the future of finance is being shaped right now, and you can be a part of it.
So, until next time, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.
And good luck on your crypto journey.